Update from Russia and Ukraine. Where are your red lines, Putin? Hello there, I'm Elena, welcome back to my channel Enough of Propaganda. Please like, subscribe, share the information, and let's make truth available for everyone. Today, my latest update on the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. In this video, we will cover all the recent developments from both sides, and we'll ask the tough questions. Where are your red lines, Vladimir Putin? Before we will start, I just remind you, in case you forget, or somebody who doesn't know me, that I'm originally from the USSR and Russia, and live for many years in Canada, and I'm on the side of Ukraine. Also, I'm not a military expert, and if I do some military updates, I rely on serious experts from different countries, from Ukraine, from United States, from several Western countries, even from some Russian experts, from conflict intelligence teams, for example, or Ukrainian expert Roman Svitan, or sometimes I prefer to use some information which Michael Naki provides, who is really seriously investigating the Z-patriots channels or the Z-bloggers channels, which is basically Russian propaganda. We have to remember always, when we're dealing with Russia, nothing what Ministry of Defense or Putin or Lavrov or anybody is saying is true. And the same thing is applicable for so-called Z-patriots or Z-bloggers. We using them very carefully because they whining a lot, and it helps to confirm something what Ukraine says. During the war, some countries lying, some more than the others. There is propaganda on both sides, this and that. So to find out the real information, you have to dig deeper, and you have to know who you're talking about and who you're dealing with. And when some fact confirmed from both sides, it's probably true. So that is why, on occasion, I'm dealing with some Z-propagandists, but they all propagandists. They all pro this war and pro Putin. That is why we can't take them at face value. We have to verify everything. And being not a military expert, I really rely on a lot of serious military experts, such as, for example, General Hodges and so on. So this is what you will see in this video. Several things will be just an information and facts, and what happened, the news, and some would be a little bit inside information about the situation on the front in Ukraine. I'll start with a very hard video from the post of Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, where he is basically saying that in just 1 week, Russia has used over 800 guided aerial bombs, nearly 300 Shahed drones, and more than 60 missiles of various types against our people, against Ukrainians, I mean. And terror can only be reliably stopped in one way, by striking Russian military airfields, their bases, and the logistics of Russian terror. We must achieve this. As General Hodges mentioned in the past, it's easier to kill the archer than catch all his arrows. And we will see the very hard video which Zelensky provided, and I will tell you some information on the matter. The information I'm covering, it's from the beginning of September, basically, and several strikes happened at the time, and you could see them on the screen. I will more cover recent days from about September 3rd, 4th, and there was basically Russian forces cannot win the war in Ukraine. And I was keep telling you that from the very beginning. They will not win. Yet Putin is striking civilians. And I want to cover this Lviv city strike, which was horrible. And it was happened on September 4th. And Lviv is the city in the western Ukraine. And among victims, tragically, were 3 children. At the time, at least, there was known about as many. And many others, 11 people at the time, was in critical condition. these attacks follow a wave of intensified Russian strikes targeting civilian areas across Ukraine. And Russia is ramping up these brutal airstrikes again. Why are they doing it? It's because Putin cannot win the war in Ukraine. He can't achieve anything. That is why he is striking civilians. The sign on the uniform says psychologist. Also, another attack happened in Poltava city, and Russian drones are also being shot down over Ukraine and even Belarus. As Russia intensifies its aerial attacks, the question remains, can Ukraine protect itself from this onslaught? In the past 2 days, more than 60 Ukrainians have lost their lives to those strikes, and it was on September 4th and 5th. Ukrainian cities like Poltava are left digging through rubble, searching for survivors after Iskander missile hit a military communication institute. And I understand that people may say that since it was a communication institute and it was kind of military, it's a valid target, but valid military target. But in my opinion, no valid military targets in Ukraine. Ukraine didn't attack Russia. It was Russia who attacked Ukraine. So civilians, as well as the military of Ukrainian people who are in military, they all shouldn't be killed. Russia should go home and leave Ukraine alone. And today, on 8th of September, that's again another attack on Ukraine. And one of 4 missiles, KH-5969, were knocked down, and 15 out of 23 Shahed drones. And 2 more UAVs were lost in location. 2 people killed in Russian airstrike on Sumy, so it got attacked again. According to the Sumy Regional Military Administration, an airstrike was carried out on the city at night. 2 people were killed and 4 others were wounded, including 2 children. And regional authorities also published photographs showing destroyed houses and outbuildings, as well as damaged car. This is Russian part of BBC. This is what Zelensky showed as well. Sumy region, entire week, Russian terror. This is horrible footage. I normally don't show anything like that. But it's time that everybody knows what is happening in Ukraine. And this man just lost all his family, his wife and all his daughters. And this is their funeral. What a horror must be feeling this man. This was his family before they all died. Yarinka, Zhenya, Evgenia, his wife, Milka, Milelka, and Darka. If to talk about children, Financial Times investigation finds Ukrainian children on Russian adoption sites. So basically, 4 missing Ukrainian children identified and located in Russia, including one give false identity. We are talking about war crimes here. And that is why the International Criminal Court named Putin and Russian Lvova Belova issued warrants for their arrest because of the genocide and war crimes. And this is about kidnapping Ukrainian children and moving them to Russia, giving them false identity, and even let Russians adopt them without even mentioning their Ukrainian heritage or that they have parents and families, some of them, in Ukraine. And this article is about that Ukrainian children who were abducted and taken to Russia in the early months of Kremlin's 2022 invasion have been put up for adoption by authorities, in one case under false Russian identity. Financial Times investigation has found. They used public records and face recognition tools, and find out that several children basically were kidnapped. And this is Lvova Belova, who is these people kidnapping Ukrainian children under the pretense that they're saving them. But if Russia wouldn't start the war in Ukraine and didn't kill their parents, and some of them didn't have parents, they took them from orphanages and so on, nothing of this would have happened. And Wayne Jordash, president of Global Rights Compliance, an international humanitarian law firm, said forcibly transferring or deporting children are war crimes, which is, again, I proved and showed in my video the documents which actually saying, yes, it is the war crimes. However, when committed as a part of widespread of systematic attacks on civilian population, as Russia's attack on Ukraine undoubtedly is, they are also crimes against humanity, he says. Changing children's identity and putting them for adoption only confirms the necessary criminal intent. Well, I showed you in my videos criminal intent. In my videos Abduction of Ukrainian Children, Putin's arrest warrant issued by ICC, and why Putin is a war criminal who tortured Ukrainian children, I showed you literally Putin and Lvova Belova admitting to those crimes. You're welcome to see it for yourself. Before we will talk about the front, I'll tell you a couple more things. There were videos published about Russians executing Ukrainian prisoners of war. And so, according to Nexta, phone calls home banned for Russian POWs in Ukraine. So basically, Ukraine was treating Russians well, and so on, even let them call home and this and that. But at least something has to be done, because Russians literally executing Ukrainian POWs. Attacks on Russian territory also happened. Belgorod was attacked again, and this article is about destroying Russians S-400, which so-called Z-patriots was whining that the super special Russian weapon who's supposed to stop all the missiles or anything couldn't even defend itself. So Z-patriots wasn't happy. On September 5th, Ukrainian naval drones launched a daring attack on the Russian port city of Novorossiysk. The authorities have urged residents to stay away from windows as tensions in the Black Sea region continue to rise. Now we will look more closely at the map, but please keep in mind, as I mentioned before, that maps are basically delayed for several days, at least 3 days, and nobody knows for sure exactly what is happening. That is why I don't take at face value whatever some people saying, especially when they don't dig deep enough and claiming things which never happened. Chasiv Yar never was taken, and still isn't. Neither is Pokrovsk. And basically, we will talk about Toretsk a little bit more right now, but about Pokrovsk, according to Ukrainian chief of Ukrainian army, Syrsky, he says that in the last 6 days, Russia didn't move for 1 meter ahead, which is true. On the other hand, the other side is true as well, that some Ukrainian military people saying that Russia have advanced somewhere, but the kind of both things are true. Advances Russia is now making more to the sides than straight ahead. So technically both sides are correct. Syrsky and other Ukrainian military people who are saying that there is some movements on Russian territory. But the amount of achievements is just microscopical to compare what Ukraine achieved in Russian territory. And even around Toretsk, for example, Ukraine liberated Nelipivka, and even parts of New York, not New York, United States, but New York, Ukraine. The deal with New York is about Russia never captured the whole city. They said they did, but they lied again. There is a plant inside New York, which Ukrainian forces were defending, and Russians couldn't take them. So they just walked around it, and Ukrainians get surrounded. But now Azov battalion came in, and they kind of liberated their own soldiers, which was surrounded before by Russia. So even New York isn't taken. And I think Selidovka was, Russians were saying they took before. Many of this was never true. And so Ukraine has some advances on Toretsk part. These are fighters of Ukrainian forces near Toretsk. Tired, but unbroken. Putin claims that they have great achievements near Toretsk, they captured, as he said, triangle 7 by 5, but then he said 35 square kilometers. So it's either triangle or it's a square. He should make up his mind. But this is minor to compare 1,300 square kilometers in Kursk region, which Ukraine captured. This is what I'm talking about. The Ukrainian advances in Kursk region. So here and here. So basically near Rilsk and this Glushkovo district. So after Ukraine destroyed 3 bridges across the river Seym, Russia keep trying to build pontoons and Ukraine keep destroying it. So all the Russian forces in here, they basically in cauldron. In Kursk region, Russian citizens are pleading for Putin to create a green corridor to escape the combat zone. However, Putin seems more focused on capturing land in Donbass, Ukraine, than protecting his own people in Russia. And Russians thinking it's a treason. At the Eastern Economic Forum, Vladimir Putin literally said he isn't gonna do anything about liberating the Russian territory, Kursk region, at all. He has a plan to do nothing, as he often doing in life. He just basically sitting and waiting until the situation will resolve itself. And now the war he started reached Russian soil, and Ukrainian armed forces now, as I said, controlling 1,300 square kilometers and 100 settlements. Putin said, oh, you won't fool us. We are not going to defend Russian territory. Instead, we'll try to capture foreign land. And basically, during like submarine, which has the same name, Kursk incident, Putin just sit and did nothing and hope that situation will resolve itself. And a month ago, the armed forces of Ukraine entered Russia, and since then they only expanded their control. Lviv and Poltava basically started to evacuate people. Russian Rosatom is contemplating shutting down the Kurchatov nuclear power plant. 130,000 residents have fled their homes. Putin insists everything is going according to plan. But with each passing day, it becomes harder for people to understand what exactly his plan is. Ukrainian invasion of Kursk was a big surprise for everybody. So there is actually very interesting military analysis done by some of most respected Western military analysts, Michael Kaufman and Rob Lee, in the article for Foreign Affairs. But they kind of looking at the situation and trying to say this is what is happening, and the situation could be good for Ukraine, could be not so good. I guess we will see what happens. I'm trying not to go ahead and trying to play guessing games, and especially trying not to reveal more information that should be revealed at this point in time. Meanwhile, in Russia, in Kursk region, there is no bigger danger and threat to the Russian people than Russian army. This is Russian army looting Russian stores. This guy looting a store in a Koreneva. The guy didn't think that the cameras were still working. And this is the third case filmed on camera of Russian looting. This is what is happening. Russian army is looting Russian stores. Even Z-bloggers report that local Russians' territorial defense poses a greater threat to the residents of than Ukrainian soldiers. Either they mistakenly fire on civilians, or they harass female volunteers, or, as you can see, they loot in the stores. So while the situation in Kursk region is good for Ukraine, and situation in Pokrovsk kind of slowed down, but near Vuhledar, unfortunately, it is very, very hard, even harder in some places. Pokrovsk and Vuhledar are hard places for Ukraine, for Ukrainian soldiers. I hope that the US decision is nearing to send Ukraine long-range missiles, which could enable the country to strike deep into Russian territory. I hope the Ukraine will get permission from the United States to do so, and it could radically alter the battlefield dynamics, according to Reuters. Despite the hardship of the war, there is no need to panic. And on the other hand, there is no need to be very cheery about it and say, rah, rah, we're gonna win tomorrow. Ukraine gonna win tomorrow. It's neither. It's a hard struggle and hard fight. There is a reason to help Ukraine even more, to give Ukraine all the necessary permissions and necessary weapons and help Ukraine. I agree on that with Michael Naki. There is no need to panic. There is need to help Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine already started to rebuild. Ukrainians started to rebuild Lviv right after that attack we talked about today. They rebuild in Izium and so on. So they brave people, they unbroken, and they rebuild in their cities. And the funny part happened with Lavrov. He is now the shame of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia. And so-called Z-patriots or Z-bloggers are kicking him now for that. Let's see what he has to say.
Тут шутят про наши красные линии. Не надо шутить про наши красные линии. И они прекрасно знают, где они проходят.
He's talking about red lines again. And saying that all, basically, Ukraine and the Western supporters know about our red lines. And they know where they are. And some people are joking about our red lines. You don't joke about our red lines. No need to joke about our red lines. And he's thinking that the Westerners and Ukrainians know where the red lines are. So the Z-bloggers politely saying or not politely saying that we would like to know this too. We don't know where they are. We already forgot what you said. There were so many of them. From the basically, oh, if you give HIMARS to Ukraine, oh, they're gonna be red line, and so on. And now Russia invaded. For a whole month, Ukraine holding the territory of Russia in the Kursk region. I just showed you on the map. And now he's talking about red lines. So even Z-bloggers are very angry or are laughing out loud. So far, the Kremlin actions don't align with its warnings. So where are the Putin's red lines? Vladimir Putin, where are your red lines? With the war escalating on both sides, Ukraine making unexpected gains in places like Kursk and Russia struggling to maintain its grip. It's clear that the situation is far from over. Will Russia continue its relentless assaults, or will Putin finally come to negotiating table? We'll be watching closely as this conflict develops. My personal opinion, Putin will not negotiate. He can't. His economy is in ruins, and if all these bandits will come back home, well, especially if Russia lost, which will happen eventually. I just wish it happened sooner so less people died on both sides. But Russia has to be forced to peace, and Ukraine is doing it right now. So our goal is to help Ukraine. Eventually it will help Russian people, because the longer the war is going on, Putin is sitting and waiting until, in his opinion, Trump will get elected and will stop this war and give Putin whatever Putin wants. And that's why over 1,000 Russian people are getting killed every single day for the last months, basically months for sure, in Ukraine. Every time I look at 1,200, 1,300, 1,100, and so on. So, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more updates on the Russian-Ukraine conflict. Learn the truth and stay informed. And see you later.